In this video, we'll be doing the Easter eggs and predictions for Season 1, Episode 1 of Marvel's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So beware spoilers not cut up, and including like all the other Marvel shows, movies, and stuff like that. I will probably be talking about them at some point through this series, so yeah. But the episode's title is called The New World Order, which is referring to the fact that we're getting reintroduced to Sam and Bucky, and they're dealing with the aftermath of this the blimp, and how the world has been affected by the blimp and all that kind of stuff. So it's and also the new Captain America and all that kind of stuff. So it's the New World Order. So yeah. But in the actual episode itself, we see Sam. He's uh, preparing to hand over the shield to the government because he doesn't feel like he's right for the job. And you actually hear this voiceover from Endgame of Steve asking, "How does it feel?" and Sam replying, "Like it's someone else's." And Steve actually says it isn't, saying that it's right. Sam is the right person for the job. So yeah, but then we jump to uh, this big action scene, and a lot. There's a couple of connections to Captain America: Winter Soldier, because in the first action scene of this series was a mission to stop Bear Batroc, the Leaper, from bringing someone over the borders. I'm not 100% sure what the mission was exactly about, other than Batroc's kidnapping someone and bringing him somewhere else to do something, and Sam had to go rescue him. But uh, in Winter Soldier, Batroc was actually the very first fight for Captain America, so there's a little parallel there. But also, uh, before this fight actually started, Sam actually jumps out of the plane, similar to how Captain America jumped out of the plane without a parachute on. So it's kind of a parallel there, and I'll talk about more as we go along in this video, because there are other parallels, references to the Winter Soldier movie. So we actually meet this new character called Joaquin Torres, who actually is uh, was called just a co-worker of Sam. They're pretty close, seems like, and but in the comics, he actually is a version of the Falcon, and he only becomes the Falcon after Sam becomes Captain America. So we're leading into that direction where Sam is gonna come to Captain America, and we're a lot of people are uh, assuming Joaquin will become the new Falcon, and I'll talk about that later on because there's a bit more backstory to his storyline that might have been referenced later on. So it'll be more in prediction area. So yeah, but Joaquin talks about how the government doesn't have Stark level tech that Sam does. They the one of the some person actually recognized Sam and mentioned the Avengers and stuff like that. And this is where uh, Joaquin and Sam are talking about this new group that's wants uh, to unite, to be unified without borders and all that kind of stuff, which and they're called the Flag Smashers, which in the comics there was a character called Flag Smasher, and he had a group called the Ultimatums. So they're just basically to combining that character into a giant group instead of calling it Flag Smasher and the Ultimatums, I'm assuming. So yeah, but they apparently these Flag Smashers think think the life during the blimp was a lot better than it is after, or before and after the blimp. They feel like during the blimp it was better, so they want to unify the borders and stuff like that. So there's that. That's their motive during the show, and it's also the motivation for the Flag Smasher in the comics. So that's a reference to that. But no one knows exactly in the MCU what happened during Endgame, and because they've kept it hush hush. Apparently, I don't know why, but no one knows exactly what happened to Cap. They just know that Sam had the shield or whatever. So there's a lot of theories going around. What's going on? Uh, where's Cap? And apparently, on the internet, there's this conspiracy theory that Cap actually was on the moon. So I wonder exactly where they're gonna go with that if they're gonna find out that Cap actually is dead, because people actually did mention that uh, this takes place a couple of months uh, before uh, Far From Home Spider-Man, and in the beginning of that Spider-Man movie, they actually had this memorial for the Lost Avengers of Iron Man, Black Widow, Vision, and Black Widow. So people assume that he's dead at that point. So I wonder if they're. So I'm assuming they're gonna find out at some point that he's actually dead. So yeah, but we get our first cameo connection to the wider MCU with Rhodey. He's just there to support Sam and giving up the shield to the government and stuff like that. But we see this exhibit that's been updated to all the events to up till the end game stuff. Even though they don't exactly tell the government or told anyone what exactly happened, they just have an idea of kind of what happened, but not really. So they have stuff about the blimp and all that kind of stuff. Thanos' invasion, but you see some logos for Hydra and Shield, and on one of the paragraphs that someone actually caught, they talked about Shield being around during Civil War, helping Cap's team. That's kind of weird that they never mentioned it at any point in the movies. In People are saying that it's not Agents of Shield's not canon and whatnot. I personally believe it is canon, but also that would be inconsistent. This paragraph would be very consistent with Agents of Shield, because at that point in time, the government Shield would have been a government-owned organization at the time. So I don't think they would have been working with the criminals unless someone behind the scenes was actually basically playing both sides of being working with Shield and also working with the government and also working with Captain America's team, which could possibly happen because there are been a lot of double agents in Shield. So yeah. So during also this exhibit, we see Steve's bike and shield from the 40s World War II stuff. Like I mentioned, they meant there's a paragraph of the Endgame mission. We see a photo of Steve becoming Cap after being injected by the super soldier serum, coming out of the big machine. I don't know if they ever gave it a machine name, but yeah, after coming out of the machine, you see Cap all like buff and all that kind of stuff. We see the Captain America comic of issue number 1 that came out in 1991 and was actually referenced in Captain America: The First Avenger, where he's actually punching Hitler. So it actually appeared in a couple at one point in Iron Man 2. So it's actually an actual comic book. Even at the end of the first Avenger as well. I think it popped up. So yeah, it's been around for a while in this universe. You see uh, Steve actually holding up that car door to block the Hydra agent's shots at him just after becoming being injected with the super soldier serum. Uh, and then we go to Bucky, and he's having a hard time, or like he has this dream or nightmare or whatever you want to call it, like most likely a nightmare because it haunts him. But he wakes. Uh, it's a nightmare about one of his missions from his days as the Winter Soldier, being brainwashed by Hydra and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not 100% sure what the mission was exactly, other than taking this person out. I don't know why he took the person out, but we might later find out exactly why. But it's the reason it haunts him. It ties back to what's going on in present day, and I'll get to that in a bit. But he wakes up from this nightmare, and we see that he's sleeping on the floor, and that actually parallels what Sam and Bucky were talking about in the Winter Soldier movie, where they felt they felt more comfortable on the sleeping on the ground after coming back from the war. So there's a little parallel there as well. So yeah, but we have this therapy session with Bucky, and we find out that uh, he is trying to make amends for the wrongdoings of when he was under the control of Hydra, and you see that he has this list of trying to make amends, but also people that he's trying to track down, and that kind of parallels to what Steve was doing in Winter Soldier as well, where he was actually trying to uh, find out exactly what he missed through those the decades that he was gone, frozen in ice. So he was writing down a list of things like movies, songs, and stuff like that in a book, in like a little book thing, uh, for like a to-do list basically, similar to how Bucky's doing this amends list for what he was doing in his time of working for Hydra. So it's kind of a parallel to that. But we see actually that some of the names are on this list, where one of them is Zemo, which we're going to be seeing later on in the series, and there's two names called Kaminsky, and I'm not 100% sure if there was a person in the comics. I believe someone said there was a character in the comics called Kaminsky, but there's also Kaminsky in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whether you want to consider this canon or not. But Kaminsky was actually a Hydra agent, at least was working for Hydra. We don't know if he was actually, I think he could have been Hydra, because he did say Hail Hydra. So it's possible that one of the Kaminskys on Bucky's list was actually the guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm not 100% sure if that is the case or not, but yeah. And we actually do find out later on in the episode that the reason Bucky was hanging around this older dude was because he actually felt sorry for what he did years ago, because that's what his nightmare was all about, was that he killed an innocent person. And we find out that it was actually this guy's son, and it actually calls back to what he said in Winter Soldier or in Civil War to Tony, where Tony asks, "Do you even remember them or whatever?" And Bucky actually replies saying, "I remember them all." So you actually see that he does actually remember every single kill he's ever actually had done. So yeah. And another name that someone mentioned in a video or whatever, but I would not have seen those whatnot. But one of the names on the list of names that he's trying to make amends or whatever with, or even hunt down, or is a character called Ross Rosatov or something like that, and he actually is a villain in the comics that has ties with Bucky, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, but we actually uh during this like scene in the therapist, he actually mentions his life at Wakanda, how he was actually it was actually peaceful there, and ever since ever since he's been uh unth- like ever since the 40s he's been fighting a war, like fighting criminals and stuff like that. But at uh once he was put in Wakanda, he actually had some time downtime and was calm and all that kind of stuff, and then was brought back right for a war, Infinity War. So he hasn't actually had any downtime really, uh, other than that little span of time in Wakanda and whatnot. But yeah, that was the only part in the therapist. So then they go to. He ends up going to a bar, like a bar or whatever. But he ends up uh, stopping. I don't know what his name actually is, but I probably would have butchered it anyway. But uh, the guy that had his son killed by Bucky, he actually comes in comes and stops a fight between him and another guy, but younger, talking about how he doesn't want someone other's trash in his trash can and all that kind of stuff. But it kind of a parallels a scene in the first Avengers where Bucky actually stops Steve Bully from beating up Steve. So it's kind of a little interesting parallel there. Having a fight in the alleyway where Bucky steps in to stop the fight in the alleyway. So yeah, and you have this old man actually joking around with Bucky and all that kind of stuff, talking about how uh, no one no one has lived past 100 or something like that. Uh, and he actually have the guy actually try to set up Bucky for a like set up Bucky for a date, and it also parallels how Natasha was actually trying to set up Steve with other women in the Winter Soldier movie. So there's a little parallel to that too. Uh, and then we jump to uh, Sam's side again, and we're introduced to his sister Sarah Wilson, who is a widow, and she's actually a comic book character as well. She's also a widow in that, and I don't know if she's actually in many comic books at all, because I it only says she was introduced in the comics, but never explained if she's not in the comics anymore or like their last appearance since then. But her first appearance was in Captain America number 134, which came out in February 1971. So I that's the only part I know that she was actually in. I don't know if she's not in the comics anymore, but yeah, that's where she was introduced. So yeah, they talk about how the life has been with her and, during the blimp and after the blimp and all that kind of stuff. How it's been uh, hard on her because she's been a widow and taking care of two kids and whatnots during that, and having to take care of the parents, I believe, as well. So yeah, but we have a little joke with Bucky and on his day where they're playing Battleship and they're talking. His date is asking exactly why do you wear gloves, and it just shows that he's trying to hide the fact that he has a robot arm. So it seems like no one really knows who he is, even though he looks just like the Winter Soldier and Bucky Barnes. like it's in the museum, like in museums and news and all that kind of stuff. You would think people would know who he actually is, but apparently not. So he's trying to hide his identity and is trying to hide the fact that he actually has a robot hand, which is a trick that they did in Agents of Shield as well to hide the fact that and uh, Coulson had a robot hand at one point. So yeah. Uh, and then you have Bucky or Sam going to the the bank trying to get a loan, I think it was, or something like that. And we find out that the bank's having a bit of trouble with it, and they're showing how it's like it's been affected. The blimp has affected them as well, with the bank and all that kind of stuff. And we actually get this reference to the fact that the guy's asking how exactly do the Avengers get paid and whatnot, and there, if you've been on Twitter or on any social media platform, probably there's been a kind of a art talk about exactly why Tony would not have paid him because he's a billionaire and all that stuff. But yeah, they brought this question up because of how uh since the blimp, uh not a lot of money's been coming in to the bank, so they're not eligible for the loan or whatever, something like that. Yeah. So because like Sam and his sister are having troubles keeping everything afloat and actually keeping, and there's his sister was planning on selling the boat, even though Sam is kind of hesitant because because it's a childhood memory and whatnot. So yeah, but at the very end of this episode, we actually have the introduction of this new character who has been assigned by the government to become the new Captain America, and he actually is called the U.S. Agent in the comics, and I don't know what his real name is, but he's not the best guy as far as I know. He's not really good. So we'll probably see his descent into being not the best Captain America, and we're gonna see obviously Cap, our U.S. agent, versus Falcon at one point at one point or another, because Sam is kind of doesn't look very happy with the decision that he made earlier on in this episode, where he gave over the shield for the government just to hand over the shield to a new person. So yeah, but we have this end credits, and there's a lot of details that I probably have missed, but there's a photo of the Howling Commandos from the first Avenger movie, and then there's this thing that then there's like pictures of Zemo. There's pictures of talk about the Flag Smashers, how they want to reunite or unite the borders and stuff like that. But then there's this phrase that says power broker is watching, and this is where I'm gonna go into predictions, but not until actually I talk about something else, which after the Flag Smashers broke into a bank or something like that, or robbed a bank or whatever, and Torres actually contacts Sam about it. He actually mentions that you don't think he could be blank blank blank. We don't know exactly what he was gonna say. It's gonna be probably a surprise later on, but the most likely scenario that this Flag Smasher person is going to be a super soldier person, because as of right now, a big part of this series is all about Captain America handing over the shield to a new person as Sam, but then Sam going to hand it over to the government, which gave it to a new Captain America. that could possibly have also super serum in them. So it's a possibility since it's all tied to that. Uh, these flag smasher, this flag smasher person could actually also have a version of the super soldier serum injected into them. But there's also another possibility which I'm like I said, it's most likely going to be the super soldier serum, but I'm just putting it out there that there's another possibility, and that could a be that they're now an LMD, because we know that LMDs have super strength and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's not out of the possibilities, because in the comics there is a version of the Flag Smasher who is an LMD. So it's a possibility that's could tie into this as well. And whether you want to consider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon or not, they did have LMDs in there, but they also had referenced LMDs in the very first Avengers, with Tony saying that you reached the voicemail or the LMD version of Tony, because he didn't want to talk to Coulson at the time. So it's a possibility that they're reintroducing the concept of LMDs with the Flag Smasher character, and how it might tie into the government with this new U.S. agent, Captain America, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a possibility that that's where they could be going with that. But going back to the Power Broker is watching. Power Broker in the comics is a character who gives people powers, as far as I understand. And there's this character called Carl Malice, which has actually appeared in Jessica Jones, I believe it was, who gave people powers, and how it relates to Jessica and all the other stuff. So it's a possibility that there's multiple, as far as I know, there's multiple people called Power Broker, but in the comics, Carl actually gave Joaquin Torres powers, which in return gave him like wings and whatnot to resemble a falcon, and that's why he becomes the next Falcon in the comics. I don't know if that's where they're gonna go with Joaquin's character in the show, because that's kind of a little bit weird, but it's a possibility that at some point the Power Broker might actually give Joaquin powers from the comics. Might be. But also that Power Broker might be the one that actually is given these Flag Smasher person the powers of super strength, and it might have given them a version of the super soldier serum. So we see this like kind of how it all might tie together, but I don't know if that's actually going to come about. But we'll have to wait and see, because a lot of my theories, I believe, in WandaVision and whatnot, did not come to pass. But it's a possibility. This is where they're going with this series. So comment down below if I missed any Easter eggs or references, and if you have any predictions for the upcoming episodes. See ya.